Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Sorry this guide took a little bit longer than usual, but today we're finally talking about Lohengrin. We'll cover her best gear, traits, cards, teams options, and of course the big question, should you summon for her or say full Lancelot, or maybe even skip both and go for the pits instead. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Lohengrin is actually the first Night Chaos unit in the game that positioned in the back row. That's already a unique twist on her design. It makes her easier to slot in a variety of teams and also increases her survivability as well. The ultimate may sound a little bit complicated at first, but here's a simple breakdown. Lohengrin summons the Black Swan to fight alongside her for 12 seconds, with HP equal to 100% of her own HP, and it comes with a 30 seconds cooldown. Now here's the important part. When Black Swan's duration ends or if she dies, she explodes and deals damage based on Lohengrin's passive skill and core. For example, at level 3, this explosion deals 800% of her attacks to enemies, which is pretty huge. Her active skill is most straightforward. It gives both Lohengrin and her summon 10% crit chance for the entire battle, which makes building her a bit easier, and also deals 360% attack as damage, with a 12 seconds cooldown. So not only is it a damage skill, but it's also a permanent buff that scales well the longer the fight goes on. Her first passive is actually really strong. It gives both Lohengrin and the Black Swan an extra hit that scales with 50% of her attack. It's actually very similar to Lua's passive in how it works. On top of that, it increases their attack by 56% and attack speed by 15%. Her second passive is a bit strange. Like I mentioned earlier, Black Swan already explodes when the duration ends, but this passive also applies the same encore nuke to Lohengrin herself. Basically, whenever she takes a big hit and dies, it triggers an 800% attack explosion with 90 seconds cooldown, so basically once per battle. Now here's the issue. She's a back row unit, so most of the time she won't be targeted by enemies at all, and to actually use this, you need to reposition her into the middle, for example. But that means losing out on the attack buff, so it's a kind of a trade-off. Honestly, I wish they keep the fear application after Black Swan's explosion in her leaked kit instead of adding this mechanic. But still, it has some niche value, like in PvP or tougher stages where enemies target the middle and she might actually get hit in that case. When it comes to Resonance card, Lohengrin actually has one of the best options for herself. Her card gives the usual 60% melee attack boost, but on top of that, it also adds 10% ignore damage reduction, which is a huge benefit not just for her but for the entire team. The skill effect is where it really shines. It gives both Lohengrin and Black Swan a permanent 35% increase to their basic attack and passive skill damage. Now if we compare her signature card to other options, it actually gives her the highest raw DPS boost by a significant margin. Anessa's card, for example, it's around 13% weaker on average, and the gap can grow even larger when you factor in max pits, MLB units, and tweak specific cards to boost Lohengrin damage even further. So the trade-off, however, is that Lohengrin's card doesn't provide the attack team buff that Anessa's card gives. So if you want the absolute maximum damage for Lohengrin herself, her signature card is definitely the way to go. But if you're looking for the overall team DPS, Anessa's card the better option. That said, since runs and Anessa's cards are already commonly used in team comps, whether by your tanks, your melee carry, or for example in Star Reincarnation setups where you run 3 or 4 carries at once. That makes Lohengrin's card your first priority before you start investing heavily into a Transcendence level. And especially because of that unique permanent DPS boost the skill provides, this card can be also used by other carries as well. Her pet is actually the biggest surprise in here. It's insanely good. At T5 it gives 60% attack, 10% ignore damage reduction, not to mention the extra damage and damage reduction effect it adds on top. But the best part is the permanent 20% attack speed buff for your entire team. That's absolutely massive. Just imagine like giving every single character on your team a free dual blade, your overall damage skyrockets, faster skills, and even your healing output gets boosted thanks to the high attack speed. It's easily one of the strongest damage pits we've seen so far and a huge selling point for Lohengrin. I'll talk more in detail about it at the end. Now let's talk gear. For armor, you can go with either Goddess or Gold armor. Both are really solid choices. The difference really comes down on what you need. Goddess armor gives you the 2% HP heal on a kill, which is really great for multi-wave content, while Gold armor provides a 10% increased healing received, which is more consistent for sustain in longer fights. For treasure, your best option is Tempest, since it gives 10% crit chance, which synergizes perfectly with her kit. Alternatively, you can use the crown or even the red ring for a smaller 5% crit crit chance boost if you don't have these two options yet. When it comes to weapons, the clear winner here is the dual blade. Even without substats, the raw attack speed bonus is absolutely broken in this game, and people are still sleeping on just how strong it is. That said, she has a few strong alternatives. For example, Ironite is a very solid contender, dealing around 89% of the dual blade damage, so about 11% weaker. Then you have the Tempest Sword and the Red Dragon, which performs almost identically, each hitting around 84.5 to 85% of the dual blade damage, so roughly 15% weaker but still strong options. The key point here is don't underestimate tower weapons. Both dual blade and the Red Dragon Tooth can outdamage some endgame gear, so make sure you're farming your towers, and even if you made a mistake and dismantled them, you can always buy them back from the village. In for traits, Lohengrin is pretty straightforward, just like most DPS units. All really she needs is attack, crit damage, or a mix of both. Stack whatever you have available and you'll maximize her damage output without overthinking it. When it comes to team comps, Lohengrin definitely needs Diane on her side. Diane is just too good. She provides healing, shields, melee attack boosts, crit damage buffs, and even damage reduction. Basically everything Lohengrin could want in a support or any other knight carry. I also really like running Lancelot with her. Since you're already using Diane, Lancelot slots in perfectly as a strong carry who can also act as a tank for your team. I love to use her here for her ultimate. It's amazing for clearing waves faster. That's actually really important because if Black Swan takes too long to finish off the mobs, she can end up exploding between the waves, and that's a really massive DPS loss for her. Another good option is Erin, who brings strong shields, extra damage, and more attack buffs. Or if you prefer more CC, you can run Biddy. She also provides healing, side DPS, and even a 10% team-wide crit rate buff. If you go that route, you also want to run Galahad to really boost her damage. Alternatively, you can slot in Tia. This is actually my favorite setup right now. This team shreds everything, but you can also try running Lua around melee team, or even Anessa comps depending on what you're building around. For Stonehenge farming teams, Lohengrin also works really well alongside Mia, Lisa plus Lucy or Lua. Just one thing to mention though, right now it seems to be a bug with her summon in Stonehenge. Black Swan stays for the entirety of her ult duration. You're basically running a 6 members team. I won't be showing the footage until it's fixed, but for me personally, when testing her ult didn't summon Black Swan at all, and even with that bug, Lohengrin was still the strongest member of the team. I'll make an updated farming guide once that gets fixed. The bottom line, since Lohengrin is a back row unit, she's extremely easy to slot in most teams, as a secondary DPS or even as a main carry, and she doesn't feel restrictive at all, unlike Summer Mary for example, which makes her much more flexible in team buildings and needs a really big chunk of DPS with it. So should you summon Lohengrin? In my opinion, yes. She's a really solid carry or even a secondary carry when needed. Her raw DPS is actually higher than Lisa, who's been the strongest Chaos DPS for a long time. If you're lacking a Chaos DPS or just want a universal unit who can be slotting in the back row without disrupting your team comps, she's an excellent pick. I especially like her for farming multi-wave content where she clears stages super fast in Stonehenge farming, and surprisingly she also deals a huge chunk of damage even in raid bosses and putting numbers close to Chia. Now with Lancelot also being on a raid up banner, a lot of you probably wondering who you should get. Honestly, there's no wrong answer here, both are really great. Lancelot is tanky, reliable, and one of the comfiest DPS units in the game. She wasn't amazing on her first banner, but after that she became a top tier unit for clearing story content, and with dupes she gets even better. In fact, from stage 45 and above, she makes elite bosses feel like a complete joke. Lohengrin on the other hand currently deals more raw DPS than Lancelot, so it's really depends on your needs. If your goal is to rush story and you want a super easy to build tanky DPS, Lancelot is the way to go. But if you're looking for a farming monster, a raid boss killer, or a main DPS, or even a second carry for multi-wave content, Lohengrin is the better choice. But the most important part of this patch is not even the characters, it's the pets. The elite pet, for example, it's a good to have if you need survivability, especially for global players. But Lohengrin's pet, that thing is absolutely insane. Like I said before, it gives the team a 60% attack, 10% ignore damage reduction, and a permanent 20% attack speed buff. It's basically like handing every single unit a free dual blade, and even compete with the Phoenix pet. To give you some perspective, my own T5 Phoenix is about 8% weaker than Lohengrin's pet on average across almost 20 different teams with endgame gear. So basically what's happening here, at certain point the Phoenix crit chance just don't add any much more, and that's where the Lohengrin's attack speed buffs take over. This build also lets you do some crazy builds with like Lua and Anessa machine gun builds hitting over 140% attack speed by stacking speed cards if you want to for some reason. So if you can only pull one thing on this banner, get Lohengrin's pay, you will thank me later even if you don't need it right away. And for the OG players who already have Phoenix, this is still a must summon. It can act as a replacement. I mean, it will actually replace it, and you can use Phoenix on your second team for Star Reincarnation, or even run it as a support pet for your main team even. But at the end of the day, both Lancelot and Lewin are really strong. One is strong and good for raids, farming and dealing with multi-wave content, and the other one is also strong but tanky, easy to build and comfy to use. So you're not losing out no matter which one you choose, and of course if you have the resources, picking up both is always an option. Just don't forget the pet. And that's it. I hope this video helped you decide, and if it did, please leave a like and subscribe. It really helps me keep going. Best of luck on your summons. Because of this back-to-back stacked banner, you're definitely going to need it. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.